Hello, fifth grade. It is Wednesday, the 29th of April, and it is our science time. We had our Zoom session this morning, and now is the afternoon subjects, history and science. Make sure you study your history notes. And we're looking at science, pages 193 to 195, and we're going to do Comp Check 7.5. So I'm going to read through the highlights in the Comp Check and things that we're going to be listening for and looking for today. Number 1 says, what happens to air when it is heated? Number 2, what happens to air when it is cooled? Number 3, what is the protective wrapper around Earth? Number 4, what is air pressure? Number 5, choose the main idea for this section. Now in number 5, you're not just going to write the letter A, B, or C. You're going to write the sentence, the whole sentence. So is the main idea of this section A, air is a protective mixture of invisible gases that helps us live comfortably on Earth? If it's A, you're going to write that. You're going to write air is the protective mixture of invisible gases that helps us live comfortably on Earth. Or if it's B, air contains gas molecules, dust, salts, and water vapor. Is that the main, mostly what we talk about in this section? If it is, you're going to write all of that. You're going to write air contains gas molecules, dust, salts, and water vapor. Or if it's C, air weighs more at sea level than it does at the top of a mountain. If it is all of C, if that's what the main idea of the section is about, you would write air weighs more at sea level than it does at the top of a mountain. You're going to write that entire thing, okay? So we're going to learn about air today. Very important. So the miracle of air, I'm on page 193. It says, in the beginning, God made the earth and sent it spinning through space. As the earth whirls through the heavens, it at first appears to be a rather insignificant traveler among the huge and radiant stars. But the earth is the most important part of God's creation because it is the planet he designed to be the home of living things. If you had something very precious and wanted to send it on a long journey, you would probably wrap it carefully to keep it from being damaged. So God, the good creator, has placed around his earth a protective wrapper called the atmosphere. It's a really good way to put it. Something so fragile, something that's so important to you, you're going to wrap up really carefully. So he wrapped around our earth a protective atmosphere, and we're going to learn about what that is and what it contains. What is air? The atmosphere is a mixture of invisible gases. We call this mixture air. Like tiny skaters in an enormous rink, molecules of atmospheric gases dash about, frequently encountering and even bumping into molecules of other gases. The molecule skaters do not always move at the same speed. When air is heated, molecules move around quickly and push each other apart. The air expands or takes up more space when it's heated. Remember, when air is heated, it expands and takes up more space. When air is cooled, the molecules move more slowly and huddle closer together. Then the air contracts or requires less space. But the molecules do not squeeze together so much that they join to form a new type of molecule. The molecules of each gas remain separate. So then the air contracts or requires less space, okay? So just think naturally, when you're really hot, you don't want people all over you. You want space. You want to stand in front of the fan or get near the air conditioning unit. When you're cold, you want to huddle closer together, okay? So just think of that naturally, and that's the way air works. It says most air molecules are molecules of nitrogen. So air has nitrogen in it. Remember, it's a mixture of gases, etc. It has nitrogen, which takes up 78% of the air. So 78% of our air is nitrogen. Oxygen is another 21% of the air. In addition, there are small amounts of carbon dioxide and several other gases in the air. So our air is mostly nitrogen, 78%, 21% oxygen, and a little bit of carbon dioxide and some other gases that make up this protective wrapper that surrounds the earth. Besides gas molecules, all air contains particles such as dust, salts from the sea, volcanic ash, ice crystals, and pollution. Air also contains water vapor. As you learn in Chapter 5, water vapor is put into the air through evaporation from the ocean and other bodies of water. Now remember, our Earth is 75% water. So we're going to have a lot of water vapor in the air, obviously. All right, so let's turn the page. So we know that air is made up 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, a little bit of carbon dioxide, and other gases. So why is air important? You are well aware, I'm on page 194, you are well aware of your need to breathe. Going without air for even a few seconds can be a rather unpleasant experience. All living things need the gases in the atmosphere in order to exist. People and animals use oxygen when they breathe, and plants use carbon dioxide in the process of photosynthesis through which they make their food. Air does many things for us besides enabling us to breathe. However, without air, we would not be able to hear because sound waves travel through air. So without air, we can't breathe, we can't hear. Air also helps to give us fresh water to drink. When you studied the water cycle, you learned that water must be put into the atmosphere before rain or other forms of precipitation can fall on the earth. In addition, air helps to warm the earth. After the sun's energy reaches the earth, much of the energy is sent back toward space, but it does not all escape from the atmosphere. Some is trapped by the gases in the air, especially by carbon dioxide. Much of the energy absorbed by carbon dioxide is sent back to the Earth's surface and helps to make the world a warm, suitable place for life to exist. One of the most important things air does is to protect the Earth. Only part of the sun's radiation reaches the Earth. Many harmful rays that could destroy life on Earth are blocked out by the gases and clouds in the atmosphere. Okay? So, it says that air does much more. Without air, there's no water. The water cycle wouldn't work. It helps us hear. It helps us breathe. It helps to warm the earth. The sun's energy reaches the earth. It's like a blanket that protects us. Some gases in the air, especially carbon dioxide, it says the small part of carbon dioxide is important. Much of the energy absorbed by carbon dioxide is sent back to the Earth's surface and helps to make it a warm, suitable place. So we talked about that's part of the way that the air warms us, and it also protects us in a way that helps and keeps the sun radiation from causing great damage to us, great harm to our skin. You hear about UV rays and sunscreen we need, and the ozone layer is like a protective, it's like a type of sunscreen that are the best sunscreen is that ozone layer, which keeps the radiation from the sun from harming us. But now that there's a lot of pollution, it's eating up that ozone layer, so we need to be careful with that. That's why we put sunscreen on to protect against any rays that do get through the ozone layer. All right? So air is obviously very important. What is the atmosphere like? So layers of atmosphere. I'm on page 194, right here. It says, have you ever heard anyone ask, how high is the sky? You could probably travel 900 miles above the surface of the Earth before leaving the atmosphere. Actually, the atmosphere is not just one protective wrapper. It is a series of layers stacked one on top of another. So God really protection upon protection upon protection, etc. Remember, there's obviously purposes for everything he does that are to our benefit. It is a series of layers stacked one on top of another. In the past, scientists tried to study the upper layers of the atmosphere by sailing up with huge hot air balloons. These brave researchers ran many risks to study the atmosphere. Some almost died when their balloons rose above the level where there was enough air to breathe. Remember, the higher you go into the spheres, the less air there is. Less gravity, too. Today, modern scientists can observe the atmosphere more safely by using airplanes, satellites, and spacecraft instead of sending people up. Airplanes don't need to breathe. In section 7.6, you will learn how each layer of the atmosphere helps to protect the Earth. That's tomorrow's lesson. For now, where am I? For now, study the diagram on page 197 and learn the names of the atmospheric layers as well as their thickness. We're going to talk about that. Air pressure. Because Earth's gravity pulls on the air in the atmosphere, 75% of the air is packed down into the bottom layer, the troposphere, and half of the air is below 3 miles. That's where we are. All but 1% of the air is below 20 miles. God has designed the Earth with the exact atmosphere needed to support life. Perfection. Our air does not float away into outer space. If it did, we couldn't breathe. Neither does it push down on us so hard as to crush us. Imagine being crushed to death by air. Because of God's, I'm on the next page, because of God's wise design, air does not press upon us that hard. It does press down upon the surface of the Earth harder than you might suppose, however. The total weight, because we don't feel it, the total weight of all the air in the atmosphere is approximately 5,600,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000 tons of air are on us. Air pressure is the total weight of air on some particular place on Earth. At sea level, air pressure is almost 15 pounds per square inch, or more than a ton per square foot. At this moment, you may have 10 tons of air weighing upon you if you are at sea level. You are not smashed to the shape of a pancake by all that air because God has designed your body so that pressure inside you pushes out, equalizing the pressure of the air. So if we have 10 tons of air on us right now, the pressure in our bodies, the way God creates our bodies, is pushing against that, so it's not smashing us, pushing against that at the perfect levels, okay, to give us the air we need without it killing us. God wouldn't create something that would destroy us. It's going to sustain us. So it's a perfect balance of pressure and our pressure, air pressure and our pressure, okay? If you sail, it says, if you could sail through the air in a balloon, you would find that air pressure gradually decreased as you rose higher and higher. That's why you'd float. Can you explain why? The higher you went, the less air there would be to press against you. Okay? The higher you went, the less air there would be because the air is what presses against us. So there'd be less the higher we went. When you sailed past the top of a high mountain, about 18,000 feet, air pressure would have decreased to half of what it was at sea level. Okay? At sea level, what did it say? It's about 10 tons. 10 tons. So about on a higher mountain, it would be half of that, maybe 5 tons, 4 tons, which is still crazy. Some elephants weigh less than that. So most elephants weigh less than that, probably. And it says the total weight of all the air is 5,600 trillion tons. I don't even know how to fathom that amount. But at sea level, it's about 10 tons. But still, 10 tons is crazy. And yet the way our bodies are made, they push back against that pressure, and it's a perfect balance. Perfect balance. Boom. And it stays that way because what God makes is perfection, and it works all the time, year after year. Millennia after millennia, etc. So let's look again at our questions. What happens to air when it is heated? What happens to air when it is cooled? We talked about that. What is the protective wrapper around Earth? What is air pressure? Choose the main idea of this section. Is it air is a protective mixture of invisible gases that helps us live comfortably on Earth? Is that mostly what we talked about? Then you write that whole sentence. Do not just write the letter A. Or if it's B, air contains gas molecules, dust, salts, and water vapor. If that's mostly everything we talked about, then write all of B. And then if it's C, air weighs more at sea level than it does at the top of a mountain, then write all at sea. Is that everything that we read about? So by the main idea, that means the main idea of everything that we read from page 193 to 195 was write the sentence for A, if it was A, or the entire sentence for B, or the entire sentence for C. Do not write the letter A, or just the letter B, or just the letter C. There's no context to that, okay? All right, so do a good job, and we'll talk tomorrow about the different atmospheres.